Okay, welcome to the American Liberties call. I want to just start off with saying nobody's getting any legal advice or any advice whatsoever. We are the people of these United States, not the United States. We are we are people that desire freedom, independence, just as our founding fathers document, which, by the way, I learned about a year ago, I guess. The Declaration of Independence is the first and foremost statute at large, yes, which has never been overturned or, you know, revised or anything like that. So, number one is the Declaration of Independence. Number two, I think, is the Article of Confederation. And number three is the Constitution for the United States of America. And today, I have two individuals, a married couple, Jack and Margy Flynn, that I met. It's got to be back in the 90s, I think. And they are awesome couples. And what they were talking about back then, they're still doing it today. I mean, I don't see anything different. They might have moved towards something that I didn't recognize, but their whole thing is based on the people and the sovereign right. And I think that the information that they have to share is extremely important because they were really a part of my foundation of where I want to stand and where I want to go. You know, like a foundation is if you're pouring in concrete, if you're pouring a foundation and you put sugar in the concrete, the foundation will never be secure because it interferes with the hardening and of the concrete. And that's what a lot of people do. They want to build a foundation and they're getting all this information and blah, 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 but they're getting off point. You got to stay on the foundation and stick to your guns, so to speak. But I want to open up with a video that they sent me just a little while ago, and I thought this is so good that I want everybody to see it. And after that, I'm going to hand the reins over to Jack and Marge, and we'll go from there. And Jack, if you want me to go to a certain website or something like that in your discussion, just let me know. Here, I'm going to start the show.
A warning to America. 25 ways the U.S. is being destroyed in under 2 minutes. 1. Open borders and illegal immigration. 2. Rampant crime in unsafe cities. 3. Mass addiction and fentanyl. 4. Election insecurity and interference. 5. The educational indoctrination of children. 6. The asymmetrical weaponization of justice. 7. The destruction of private property rights. 8. Inflation and debt. 9. The global depopulation agenda. 10. Record low fertility and plummeting birth rates. 11. Unaccountable federal bureaucracies. 12. Toxic food supply. 13. Vaccine and pandemic disinformation. 14. The trans-contagion and sterilization of children. 15. Overprescription of pharmaceuticals. 16. Destruction of the nuclear family and parental rights. 17. DEI and the new racism. 18. Moral and societal decay. 19. The financing of endless foreign wars. 20. The sprawling surveillance state. 21. The centralization and consolidation of government power. 22. The destruction of trust in institutions. 23. The censorship industrial complex. 24. State media propaganda. 25. The smearing of those who challenge it.
Mission log 2050-01.
Okay, Jack, take it away. I'd like to introduce Jack and Margy Flynn. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Chappie.
Hi,
It's been
Chappie.
a very long time since we've spoken with you, probably 20 or more years. And we were surprised to hear from you, okay? But it's always nice to hear from old friends and people who attended our seminars many years ago.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's great to hear from you, Chappie. We're glad you're still hanging in there and still trying to do the work.
Yep.
America needs every single man and woman to step up for her right now. She's in deep, deep distress.
We're right in the razor's edge, to use something from Somerset Maugham. We're right in the razor's edge, and that edge is very sharp. We can fall forever into the communist hellhole forever. This is a communist nation now. It's been a communist nation for a very long time, unknown to the American people. Okay, I wish it were known to the American people. There are some who are aware, but the society has no idea whatsoever as to the peril America is in. And unless that society, and I don't mean a few people here and there, I don't mean a few groups here and there, I mean the entire society, or a large segment of that society, wakes up very quickly, understands the economic reality, understands the governmental reality, and understanding the reality of the domestic enemies who rule and control America, and then take lawful, effective action to stop this, then we're all gone. The country's gone, your kids are gone, your grandkids are gone, it's over. The American experiment is over. So it's up to the people. We can't expect the criminals, who are the gatekeepers for the criminals, and all politicians are criminals across the board. I don't care who they are, where they are, what they say. If they're in public office today, they're criminals, period. We can't expect the criminals who are guarding the criminals to ever do the right thing. So it's always up to the people. We said this years ago. I mean, I've been doing this for over 70 years. Margy's been doing it for over 60. We've said it all those years ago. We're saying it now. We can't expect the gatekeeper criminals to to crucify or criminalize the criminals for their unconstitutional actions against the people. It's all up to the people. It's up to the people listening to this program right now.
Yeah, Chappie, you've known us a while, so you know what our basic theme is. You know, we've always talked about the power of the people, the inherent power in each and every one of us, because we, the people, are the de jure government of this country. And we gave a limited amount of our authority, if you will, our power, to the public officials who are supposed to be operating the machinery of our government. Well, I think we can safely say that those guys have run away with the store because we, the people, were not paying attention, and we did not exercise the proper amount of oversight and supervision that we should have to keep our government in check, to keep our public officials operating only under the original organic Constitution of 1787 as amended in 1791 with the Bill of Rights. And because we didn't do that, we kind of got busy trying to make a life, you know, get ahead, be prosperous Americans and all of that American dream hoopla. So we kind of walked away from our responsibilities and we said, oh, you know, we've got our representatives in there. They'll take care of us. They've got our back. And we couldn't have been more wrong because they don't have our back. What they do have is a knife in our back because they've been twisting it and harming us for a very long time, all the while speaking a lot of nice pleasantries and platitudes, especially when it's an election cycle and they want to get reelected. But they don't care about us. And the reason is, you know, it's multifaceted. There are so many reasons. Obviously, greed, the lust for power and influence, self-serving, and getting ahead as far as they look at it. It's funny how they go into office, you know, maybe relatively normal, maybe some of them well off, and they come out multimillionaires and more. I wonder why that happens, because they're on the take and they're bribed and they're blackmailed and they're basically positioned so that they will do exactly what the corporation wants them to do. And when I say corporation, I mean the DC corporation, the one that was unfortunately inserted and overlain over our original government. back in 1871 when the Organic Act was passed, which basically gave them carte blanche to do whatever they wanted to do that was inconsistent with our original Constitution. So clearly that act was unconstitutional, having been passed by a Congress that had taken an oath to the original Constitution. They had no constitutional, thus no lawful authority to do what they did. And subsequent to that came about all the municipalities and cities and whatever, all operating under the big mega corporation out of DC, which is pernicious to these United States of America, the land on which we, the people, dwell and work. So we've been basically, snookered for most of our lives. We've been told one lie after another from virtually every supposed authority figure you can think of. And unfortunately for most of us, we haven't really had the wherewithal to verify, to stop and think, principally because most people are just lucky that they can keep their heads above water, pay their mortgage or their rent, run the car, afford to buy gasoline, feed their children, maybe go out to dinner once in a blue moon, buy a 6-pack of beer, because everything has gotten so expensive. And it's all by design. It's all totally unnecessary. It's one lie after another. And this video that we sent today is emblematic of what they're doing. And again, we could go into thousands of nuances of what they're doing to us to harm us every single day. And yet nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care, to quote
Like
George Carlin back in the day when he was doing his political routines. And he was so spot on and so true and so real about what he said, but the audiences simply laughed. They didn't take it home. They didn't take it seriously. It was just a comedy routine. And he was trying to tell us straight up with his comedic routine that we have been totally lied to, and we've been bought and sold and betrayed a long time ago. So here we are, 2024, which seems incredible in and of itself. Jack and I, as he said earlier, have been doing this work for decades, and we've been basically giving the same message to people. Incredibly, most didn't want to hear it. Now, some did, and those who did and used the methods that we developed over the years did well for themselves. But what we wanted then and what we still want now was for people to go beyond resolving their personal immediate situations and going forward to help the country. Our idea was for people to start locally in their own communities and hold their public officials accountable to the original Constitution. And failing that, remove them and put in decent people who would do so. But most of the people who came to us and who had success using our methods did not do that. Instead, once they got their victories, they kind of dropped through the cracks, went back to business as usual, and no longer supported the movement to take America back from the communists who have totally infiltrated every institution of importance and have usurped the power of lawful government, converted them into corporations for profit, and they're plundering and raping us every single day.
There were some people who paid it forward, but very,
Very few.
Very
And
few.
it's shocking when you realize how few people care about their fellow citizen. As long as they've gotten theirs, they're fine. And this is a very, very damning symptom in a people that's supposed to, believe in freedom and equality and justice, and many of whom call themselves Christians. And we're supposed to take care of our neighbors. And I don't think that the American spirit has really fulfilled that promise to take care of our neighbors, because we don't seem to care about the guy across the street, only about what's going on in our backyard. And I think that's a shame. And I think the Americans have a lot to answer for. And as it said at the end of that video, we will get what we deserve as a people, which is tragic for people like you, Chappie, and others who have done the right thing, who have stood up to this evil power, and who have worked diligently to help other people do so. We're going to be caught in the same maelstrom as everybody else is, because the power of this megalith that we've allowed to develop all around us is going to be overwhelming unless we make a concerted effort as a nation, as a people, to do something to stop it. We have the inherent political power, but we have not used it. Never in the history of America has the American people as a society stood up to the evil that has attacked it. And if we don't do so now, I don't think we're going to get another opportunity to do so. And that will indeed be the end of America as a free nation. Jack?
And that would be totally unfortunate, not only for the America the American nation, our Constitution, our constitutional republic, for the people of this country, but for the people of the world.
Yes.
I mean, look, America was, as far as we're concerned, as far as, in our opinion, okay, this is only our opinion, but it seems to be very relevant to us. America was set up by divine inspiration, okay? There are a lot of comments about the Constitution, the original Constitution, and we understand that, all right? However, that Constitution was divinely inspired. It could not have been done any other way. It's the first time in the history of existence that the power of government, the power of politics, the power of ruling a nation was put in the hands of the people. But what did the people do? Well, there was a fellow named Jesus who walked the earth 2,000 years ago. He was telling the truth to the people. He was trying to educate the people. He was trying to show the people right from wrong. And we're not Christians, okay? We're not Christians. But he was a historical figure. He did the right thing. He tried to show the people you have to live the good life, not the evil life. What did they do? They spit in his face. They crucified him. Well, the same thing happened to the Constitution. The American people spit in the Constitution, dumped it, trampled on it, never once enforced it, never once accepted the power delegated to them by the Constitution to hold their government to the standards and the mandates established in the Constitution to restrict government. People have never done that, not once. Now, over the years, yeah, a few people, a few groups have tried. They usually use the wrong methods and they fail. But the government is not concerned about a few people and a few groups. They're concerned about the greater society. Is the society supporting their program or not? And the American people have supported all the evil, all the wars, all the criminality, all the torture, all the economic violence ever inflicted upon the American people by their own government that they support. Well, there's something awfully wrong with that government. Now, I'll get in a little bit of history here, and then we'll get into our methods. And that's probably what most people would like to hear. America was founded as a fraud, okay? Now, I just said there was divine inspiration. Yes, there was divine inspiration in terms of the intent. But within the intent, other people on earth use their own means, that use their own programs, use whatever they wanted. All right, let's go back a little further. Let's go back to England, all right, briefly. The past is the past, but sometimes things in the past are relevant to the present. Queen Elizabeth, and I'm not talking about the one who just died, I'm talking about the one who lived hundreds of years ago, 400 or 500 years ago. She had a fellow by the name of John Day. John D, some pronounce it Day, okay, who was one of her administrators, one of her advisors. And he was an evil SOB. He was satanic to the core, okay? Through John Day, he brought the Jews who had been expelled from England many times back into England. Well, in 25 years, they basically controlled England again, as they control any nation, as they control America right now. Well, the English people didn't see that. The English people had no interest in what was going on in their own country, just as the American people have no interest in what's going on in their country. I mean, they may express an interest, but unless one does something to fulfill or take action to make that expression live, the expression doesn't mean a damn thing, okay? Those who really care take action upon their caring and try to make it better. They try to resolve the problems of which they speak. Well, America didn't do that. England didn't do that, okay? So here we have a situation in which the Jews now are controlling England, all right? James I, who succeeded Elizabeth, was not a friend of the Jews, but he was weak. He didn't know what to do. His son, who succeeded his father when James died, Charles I of England, was an outspoken enemy of the Jews, not because they're Jews. I mean, you don't dislike someone because he's not part of your race, okay? He's not part of your color. That's ridiculous. You oppose a group of people because of their actions and how their actions hurt other people. Well, their actions were hurting England. So he had an active campaign with his Cavaliers, many of them well-known people, who tried to stop this onslaught of the Jews in England. And at this time, remember when America was founded? Well, America was founded a long time ago, but in terms of modern times, when the Brits came to America, 1620, well, Charles was on the throne at that point, okay? 1630, 1640. America, which was still England, was developing as a nation at that time, but it was part of England as a nation, separate, but part of England, all right? Well, the Jews didn't like what Charles was doing, and Charles abandoned Parliament. He got rid of Parliament because they were totally controlled, virtually to every man, by the Jews. And the Jews had the money to control because they took over the money interest of the crown. So what the Jews did was get a revolution going in England. It was called the Civil Revolution. It wasn't a civil revolution at all. It was a Jew revolution to wipe out the monarchy and to establish their hegemony in England as the Bank of England, which is exactly what happened. So they brought in the Roundheads and Oliver Cromwell, and Charles was executed, okay? Well, Cromwell didn't do too well. And then came Charles II and James II. They didn't do too well either. They both regained the kingship of England, but the Jews at that point were so strong and they were thrown out again, all right? America was being formed at this time, okay? Well, who had the major influence in America?
We had the money. We funded everything.
Anyone who has the money has the major influence. Anyone who has the money has the major control, okay? So it worked well in England, it worked well in other countries. So they said, well, let's take our scam and create a new nation and give people the impression that they're free, but they'll really be slaves working for us, but that will be unknown to the people because we will not reveal that to the people, all right? So when the revolution came, there were a lot of reasons for the revolution, but it was a scam, okay? Virtually everything in America that has taken place since that revolution has been and is now a scam. But the American people don't see it. Yeah, you guys might see it. A few other people may see it. A few groups see it, but the society doesn't see it, which is why the scams continue. All right. So what they did, the money Jews now funded not only the Union, or I shouldn't say the Union, the colonies, okay? They funded the colonies, they funded the patriots, they funded the revolutionaries, but they also funded Britain, okay? And the idea was to have a fake revolution that pretended the American people actually won it, all right? And then fulfill the plan that the Jews had set out originally, which was to set up America as a failure so they would take control of that failure and then run it as they wanted to run it, just as they were running England and other nations at that time, all right? What did they do originally? Well, the first guy who actually won, I shouldn't say the first guy, the first patriot who actually won the leadership of America was John Adams. Now, a lot of people will disagree with that, okay? But if you go back into historical records, true historical records, Adams was an ancestor of mine. You will find that he was elected by the Electoral College as the first president of this nation. Why? Because Adams was a man of the people. He was not an aristocrat. He was not a money man. He was an integral part of the revolution, okay? Washington was an agent of the crown, an agent of the Jews. So what took place, and you'll never read this, I can't verify it except in the family histories, and no one is going to see those. There was a second electoral election, and miraculously, Washington wins. Well, what did Washington do? First thing he did, or one of the first major things he did, was establish the first central bank in this nation, known as the First Bank of the United States, owned by the Jews who funded the revolution. And we've had a central bank in one form or another, ever since, no matter what anyone tells you. People will say, well, Jackson killed the bank. Yeah, Jackson killed the second federal bank, okay? The first federal bank had a 20-year charter, and that charter ran out. The Congress said, oh my God,
You want this again? Yeah.
we can't continue with this because the bank was causing havoc all over the nation. The bank was taking over the nation just as the Jew bank took over England. Well, it was taking over America as well. So the Congress said, no, we're not renewing the charter. What happened? England sent us a loud and clear message. If you don't reinstate the bank, we will devastate America. Well, we didn't reinstate the bank. So along comes the War of 1812, okay? And that was a vicious, brutal, real war, not a fraudulent war as the revolution was. And we give credit to the people who fought in the revolution. We give credit to them because they thought they were fighting for freedom. But like all soldiers and sailors, they never really know what the hell's going on. All right. They're listening to all the slogans, but they really don't know what they're doing and for whom and who benefits. Okay. As far as the War of 1812, that was a real war. Real damage was done. Okay. We were ready to capitulate. So finally we said, fine, stop the war. You've got the second bank. All right. Second bank was established in 1816, had a 20-year charter. A guy by the name of Biddle was in charge of that bank. He was one bad SOB. Jackson, Andrew Jackson, the president, made a vow that he would kill the bank. And he was asked on his deathbed what his greatest feat was. And he said, I killed the bank. Yes, he did. He killed that second bank, but he gave the power that the second bank had to the state banks to do the same thing the second bank did, okay? Creating their own notes, pulling chicanery on people everywhere across the nation. And we've had a central bank ever since. And then, you know, about 1913, when the Fed came in and it became official at that point. So it's been a scam upon the American people forever. What did the American people do about it? Zero, nothing, nada. Okay, this is why we have problems now. America has been and is now the most successful communist nation that ever existed upon the face of the earth. And further, the United States of America, we call it the United States of America, the government, the United States of America, has created every communist nation in the face of the earth, bar none, and funded all of them, okay? And the American people do not know this. Even in the face of the blatant criminality that has taken place on the American people in the past 4 years, the people still don't know it, all right? Some people do. We're glad to see that some people are waking up, but the society is not waking up. And you hear a lot of people saying, oh, we're winning, we're winning, we're winning. Show me one win. We and Margy and our people have had thousands of wins, both in and out of court, on constitutional methods for individuals and for groups and communities, all right? We don't know of anyone else doing it. We'd love to see people winning in court and winning out of court using constitutional positions. We don't know of any. If you know of any, well, let us know. We'd like to meet them, would like to talk with them and see what they're doing and congratulate them for what they're doing. But the American people have no idea what's going on in their own country, okay, as a society. And as I say, and as Margy says, and I think as most of you agree, we're right on the edge of total destruction if the American people don't wake up. Now, do you want to get into the methods a little bit?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment too. Earlier, Chappie had put up a link that showed the first page of our website and also showed the links to the teaching series that we did. We did it in November of 2022 with the intention, again, of making our information available for free to anybody who's interested. We had been invited by a fellow by the name of Mel Carmine after he had interviewed us a couple of times on his programs, and he loved what we were saying. So he said, would you guys be willing to do a teaching series for free? And we said, of course. We want the word out there. We want people to know that they have power, they have authority as American citizens. They just don't know how to execute that power and authority. So we did the series, and it's available. It's 10 segments. It's about 20 hours of material. There are exhibits as well. And I would urge anybody who's interested in learning more about the Constitution and also learning more about what's going on in the world of government and so-called courts, because there is so much criminality and deception and fraud in these communist corporate for-profit courts that it's getting impossible for any American citizen to get a fair deal. And we cannot let this happen. We cannot let this de facto, phony, fraudulent, unconstitutional governmental system, which is basically a corporation, that has overlain itself over the legitimate authority of our real governments to attack us as it has been and to deny us and violate and steal our rights. If we let that happen, then our demise is on us and we're contributing to our own demise. So what we've done over the years is basically simply apply the Constitution and use it as we believe our founders intended, which was to hold government officials accountable and liable pursuant to their oaths. And we did that locally in our community. We did it in our county and we did it in our state. We were successful at stopping Los Alamos National Labs, which is something that no one else had ever been able to do before, because we went to our state secretary of the environment and told him what was going on. Amazingly, he had no idea about the things that they were actually conducting on a routine basis. And he was horrified and shocked. He actually came to our community, which was Las Vegas, New Mexico, and made a tour with us and actually took steps to clean up and did clean up a lot of what was going on there. And he did go to Los Alamos National Lab, and given that the fact that the lab is in New Mexico, even though it's a federal installation, he demanded that they clean up their act, and they did. And we stopped 4 or 5 different programs that were very dangerous, bomblets being let off experimentally, polluting everybody on the people, of course, and so forth and so on. And we did this over and above the doubts and protestations of all of the so-called anti-nuclear groups in New Mexico, and there are plenty of them. They all thought we were lunatics because they didn't understand the power of the Constitution. But when we succeeded, then everybody, oh, we knew you could do it. That seems to be the way of the people. They don't want to do anything themselves, but they'll be happy to ride on your coattails once you show them the way. Well, we don't care about that. We just want people to know that if they want to get their country back under the Constitution, they have to do something about it, because there's no way that any of these monkeys that are supposedly holding public offices are going to do it. They're all posers. They're liars and hypocrites and cheats and ghouls. They're pedophiles, a lot of them, and they are not interested in the well-being of America or Americans. They only want to maintain their own personal positions. So the solution for us has always been applying the Constitution. And the way we do that is to hold them accountable by and through a simple process.
Hang on a second. Okay. I just want to interrupt Margy for a moment. Yeah, I know, but this is important. All right. First of all, our teaching series is free. Okay, it's free. It doesn't cost any dime. It's about 20 hours long. A lot of people really like it. A lot of people tell us we should have charged thousands of dollars. We don't charge for anything. Everything we do is free. Okay. Our intent is to restore constitutional governance to America. It's not money. Okay. Restoring constitutional governance will save America, but only the people can do it. Now, the reason I interrupted is there's an important point here, because it will have bearing on what Margy's about to say. Many of you may know that in 1871, the phony Constitution came about, all right? The bottom line here, and there's always a bottom line to anything we do and anything that exists, there's always a bottom line. A million reasons why you can reach the bottom line, but the bottom line always stands as the bottom line, all right? And the bottom line in that position is that the Congress, the 41st Congress that created that 1871 Organic Act and the 1871 Constitution had taken an oath to the original Constitution forever, okay? They were forever bound by oath to that Constitution in perpetuity to uphold that Constitution. They did not do so when they created the Organic Act and the phony 1871 Constitution. Therefore, they committed treason, all right? Not only did they commit treason, since the Constitution they created was a treasonous Constitution that set up the corporate state throughout America, the corporate governments throughout America under which you're living right now. And these corporate governments actually seized and took over the duties of government and the leadership of government and turned America into a corporate nation, much as, let's say, U.S. Steel, which is one of the powerhouses back in those days. If U.S. Steel said, we are now America, and you owe Americans, you owe your allegiance to U.S. Steel because we are your rulers, there likely would have been a revolution. But there was no announcement, okay? Everything is done in secret. The people didn't know. And the people who did know kept their mouths shut. They didn't do a damn thing. So that corporate state now rules America. And every politician you have in this country today, every single one of them, without exception, and every federal worker, without exception, who has taken an oath, has committed treason by taking that oath because the oath was taken to a treasonous constitution. Therefore, everyone since 1871 has committed treason. Everyone today is committing treason. I don't give a damn who he is. Trump, Flynn, this one, that one. They all committed treason. Get that through your heads. Please understand it. America is a treasonous nation run by traitors, and the people aren't doing a thing about it. Go ahead.
Okay, where was I?
The
All right.
notes.
Yeah, I'll get there. All that said, the people still have power if they choose to exercise it. This is the question that has to be answered, and it can only be answered in the heart, mind, and soul of every American. Do we want to continue as slaves and basically mindless idiots until they finish killing us off, which is what they're doing on a very slow basis, and they may escalate that depending on their whims? Or do we want to at least give it all we can to stand up for what's right and remove these lying scumbags from office? Where we have always approached errant government is a simple process by which we notify them of their wrongdoing. Now, years ago, we used to send them an initial letter. We called it a presumptive letter. But because of the grandiose level of criminality that has completely taken over, there is no longer any time for the softer approach. So we go straight to an affidavit declaration of truth in which we notify the public official of his wrongdoing, and we specifically state what his duties are and what he has done. And we state how we've been harmed by the actions of this particular entity, what rights have been violated or denied, which amendments protect them, which aspects of the Constitution and the articles that they are not upholding, such as Article 6, Clauses 2 and 3. And we let them know in a very straightforward way that if they disagree with anything that we've stated in the affidavit, then they have the opportunity to rebut it in kind by means of their own sworn notarized affidavit, supported in truth, fact, valid law, and evidence. And if they do not rebut in kind in this manner, then they tacitly admit to everything that we have stated, fully binding upon them in any court in America without their protest, objection, and that of those who represent them. An unrebutted affidavit stands as fact and truth before any court. In all the years that we've been doing this, and all the years that our students have been doing affidavits to notify their offending public officials, there has not been one rebuttal affidavit ever written, not one. And it's a simple process because they cannot do so. Since we're based in truth and fact and valid law, meaning law that is constitutionally compliant, there's no way that any public official can rebut what we've said because we are based totally in truth. And for them to attempt to do so, they could not do it truthfully. Therefore, it would be perjury, and they're not willing to do this. The most that's ever happened by way of a quote unquote rebuttal is some county or city or state attorney will write and say, so-and-so didn't do such and such, blah, blah, blah. And it's never on point. And we just let them know in a polite fashion that we did not send our affidavit to this entity, this lawyer, whoever. Therefore, he has no authority to intercede on behalf of the other entity. It's the other entity upon whom the duty falls to rebut. And since he hasn't done so, then he is admitted, et cetera, et cetera. It's been very effective. And by and through this process, we and our students were able to remove many public officials who were corrupt. And in New Mexico, it probably numbered about 4 dozen by the time we were through with our administrations, because we got rid of dirty local politicians, county politicians, state politicians, judges, police, even into the Senate and mayors too. Yes, and city councilors and county commissioners, that type of thing, because they could not rebut what we had to say. And it's not rocket science. It's really very simple. But you do have to understand how to articulate your claims and charges. And they have to be scrupulously true. You have to be able to support them with fact and evidence. And if you can do that, then you have the power in your hand to present to your public officials. Basically, it's a manifest. Here you are. This is what you've done. This is not pursuant to your oath. Therefore, you've perjured your oath. You've invoked sections 3 and 4 of the 14th Amendment. So you vacated your office. You forfeited any of the benefits of that office, including your salary and pension. You are unfit to hold public office, and you are constitutionally prohibited from receiving public funds. Very simple, very easy to do. And this is the way we have been successful all these years. And when we go to court, if it's a suit, for instance, we will use the affidavit to support the claims and charges we will make in the suit. And when we go to court, we always make sure to qualify whoever is sitting in as judge by and through some simple statements that we make, in which we say that
speak for ourselves.
Well, we always speak for ourselves. We never use attorneys because we know what attorneys are. They are members of the bar. They have an oath to the bar. They are not loyal to the Constitution for the United States of America. They are not loyal to America. They are not loyal to the American people. So that's definitely a no-no. Also, if you decide to use an attorney, then the state considers you a ward of the court, incompetent, basically a child or an imbecile, and does not see fit for you to speak for yourself. So that's like putting a gag on yourself. There's no way in heck that we would ever do that. So we always speak for ourselves, and we always qualify the judge. As soon as he or the bailiff says, stand up and bring this to order, and the judge says, are the parties ready to proceed? When he gets to us, we say, no, sir. We don't say, Your Honor, because there's no titles of nobilities in this country. We still do have a 13th Amendment, even though it's been hidden. And we say, we have some matters that we have to clarify before we can proceed. And the judge will usually say, go right ahead. And we say, you and opposing counsel have taken oaths to support and defend the national constitution and the state constitution. Is that correct? And the judge, if he's not a moron, will say, yes. And we say, with all due respect, pursuant to those oaths, you must abide by them in the performance of your official duties, especially those before this court. Is that correct? And again, if he's not an idiot, he'll say, well, yes, of course. We say, okay. Then we make our status statement, and we simply state that we appear by special appearance, sui juris, that we are living, breathing men and women on the land, flesh and blood, American citizens, with and claiming all of our inherent unalienable rights secured for us in the national and state constitutions, that we are not corporate fictions, we are not vessels, we are not persons or individuals. We stand on the Constitution. Our names are properly spelled only in upper and lower case letters. And then we quiet for a second and we say, does anybody have any objection to what I've just stated? And they never do. And we say, okay, then it's on the record that this is how we appear before this court of record. And then we're ready to go forward. Now, what we've done in that situation is let the judge know we know our rights. We know that he has duties imposed upon him pursuant to the Constitution and the oath that he took. In particular, Article 6, Clauses 2 and 3, which require him to hold the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. And that's what we stand on. Because most of the statutes and codes that are typically thrown at citizens as having broken in some way or another are anti-constitutional or blatantly unconstitutional. And this is a point from which we argue. And we've been very successful in getting cases against us and the citizens dismissed because we stay on point. We don't allow the judge or the opposing counsel to distract us from our point, which happens far too often, which is one of the reasons why when we go to court and when any of our students go to court, we do not suggest having a script, because we've seen it happen with people who basically created a script for themselves. They get to court and they have it all down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then as soon as they're thrown a question that's off script, that's coming in from left field, they are completely flabbergasted and thrown for a loop. They don't know where they are. You can see the deer in the headlight look coming on, and they cannot get back to the center of their argument. And invariably, they will get drawn into something that they don't really know how to defend against, and they end up losing. So we have tried to encourage people to educate themselves and to not just read it and say, yeah, okay, but to really live it, to understand it, to take their heads and go back to the time when these things came about, why our founders put them in there, what the reasoning was, because we don't exercise our brains anymore. We're too dependent upon technology. We have millions of things at the flick of a mouse pad and a key. We can't necessarily do that when we go into a court. We have to think on our feet, and we have to be fully vested and armed in our own constitutionally based arguments. That's the only way to overcome these liars and cheats. And most of them will try to ignore you because they don't know the Constitution. They cannot argue point for point with somebody who does know the Constitution. So they will always try to ignore you, or they might say something really stupid like, oh, the Constitution, that doesn't apply here. And you have to be prepared for that kind of an argument. You have to be able to come back and say, excuse me, are you telling me that you, who just admitted to taking an oath, says that the Constitution doesn't apply here? Well, then this isn't a court of law, is it? And since I'm not a corporation, but a living, breathing woman, this court has no jurisdiction over me. So I move that you have to dismiss because this court has no jurisdiction. And they're flat-footed. They don't know what to say. And usually they just say, oh, dismiss. But you have to speak with confidence. And you have to know that you're speaking the truth. Because if you waver, if you're doubtful, if you're not sure, they'll see right through it. They can assess you in a second. And then they will come on you like a pack of wolves. So you really have to understand what you're doing, which is why in our series, we speak not only of the specific methods and the aspects of the Constitution, but the nuances, the things that go on in the courts, how the courts are stacked against us, all of the basically criminal things that these people are allowed to do every day and get away with it because there's no constitutional justice and there's no constitutional governance anymore. It was swept aside when the 1871 Constitution came in. The people did not realize it. As Jack said earlier, they were not told what was going on. They didn't understand that this corporate charter was now masquerading as our federal government, and it continues. And unless we as a people rise up and stop this and remove this criminal cartel that's been running our country for far too long, America will be a past entity, and we will all be living in a communist gulag. Jack?
Yes. Unfortunately, America is not what people think it is. Okay. Appearances can be very deceiving, and there have been many deceiving appearances in this country. I think we can all agree, or most of us can agree. I think the people watching this are probably pretty well tuned in. I think we can all agree that America is a treasonous nation run by a treasonous government. People are not acting in treason, but the people have supported the treason forever. Now the people have to stop supporting the treason and start taking their constitution back, okay, and enforcing that upon a very corrupt system. And the courts are the most corrupt in this entire nation. I mean, the courts are just insanely corrupt, but they're corrupt because the people have allowed them to be corrupt. The people have never stopped them. Okay, this is not ego speaking, but we have, Margy and I have, our people have, and we've won thousands of cases over the years, many thousands, both in and out of court against this corrupt government. Our focus right now, because we're older, we're older, let's just put it that way. Our focus now is not on individual cases for individual people. We did that for years, okay? We helped people for years. And the people that we helped won their cases. But as Margy said earlier, and as I said in many seminars and broadcasts throughout the country, as soon as they win, they drop out of the movement. And it's basically, well, I got mine, thanks, but see you later. I mean, you don't win with a society like that. So we no longer help people in court anymore, okay? We will tell them what we would do if we were in that situation, but that's it. We don't deal with them directly in their cases. Our focus originally, and even more so now, is to help people help their nation to restore constitutional governance to this nation. That was my focus when I started all those years ago. And I had a couple of mentors in those days, and some of you who are a little older might remember them. One was Joe McCarthy. He was a senator from Wisconsin. He was an avid anti-constitutionalist. And I was a young guy, but we got in contact and we worked a little bit together. I did not like Roy Cohn. I had nothing to do with Roy Cohn, but I liked Joe McCarthy quite a bit. He liked me as well, and we saw a lot eyeball to eyeball. Another one was Robert Wells of the John Birch Society. Okay, well, in those days, the American people were more concerned about their country than they are now, much more concerned. McCarthy had tremendous support in this country. Robert Welch had tremendous support in this country. And then they both mysteriously died, okay? A lot of people mysteriously die in this country who are opposing the evil governments. And when that happened, other influences came in. The Jew influence was very heavy. The governmental influence was very heavy. And when people see opposition to what they think is correct, they will go with the opposition out of fear. The American people are very fearful people. I wish they weren't, but they are. If they weren't so fearful and they were more courageous, then maybe we would have a different nation. Let's take a look at it from this point of view, from what Margy explained and from what we've done in 70 years. Let's say 70, 60, or 50 years ago, even 40 years ago, that a large segment of Americans did what we did before the courts and against government. If that happened, there would have been tens of millions of people who did what we did would be living in a different country right now. We would likely be living in a constitutional paradise, but we're not, okay? Now, let's get back to the courts a little bit. You all know that the courts, I think most of you know, that the courts are not authorized. The courts that operate right now in this country do not operate under Article 3 of the Constitution, okay? The courts operate under the corporate constitution. They are corporations. They are no longer part of government. They're pretending to be government, but they're corporations. You even go to Dun and Bradstreet and find out the corporation number for your local court. Well, the original organic constitution of 1787 never authorized any court in this country to be a corporation, especially a for-profit corporation, okay? So by that position alone, there is no court in this country that has lawful jurisdiction over any American citizen. And further, all courts in this country, by customs, practices, and policies, defy and oppose due process of law. Any court that opposes and defies and does not uphold due process of law forfeits any perceived jurisdiction, and the only lawful authority such a court has is to dismiss the case based upon a motion by the defendant, okay? So we've been very successful in helping people. Now we'd like to be very successful in helping people help their nation. Because as I said, and we're repeating it, we're right in that razor's edge. We don't want to fall in. And I think it's about 3 o'clock now. So if there are any comments or questions, we'll be glad to entertain them right now.
Okay, does anybody have any comments or questions? Just raise your hand. And it's right to raise your hand. You just go to somewhere, I don't know, or put it in the chat. Unmute yourself. All right, now we were cut off for a little bit. I mean, I was cut off. Did anybody notice that?
I noticed you were off. I didn't know what happened. I thought maybe you had to do something else.
Yeah, all right. I don't know if the video was cut off or not. I'll see. And we didn't miss too much, maybe 4 minutes. But I do want to say about what Jack and Marge said is that you are a man or a woman. You're not a person as defined by statute. In general sense, you're a person, but you're not in a general sense when you're standing in court. The court goes by statutes, which is the prima facie evidence. And any word, and I mean any word, you got to look up the definition. And if that definition is in there that applies to you, then you can address that. But when you look up in a legal dictionary, like Black's Law 6th edition, you look up person, generally speaking, or don't quote me, but generally, it means a human being. But it also means corporations and yada, yada, yada. Corporations are the all caps name. Now, I know there's a big group out there that says, oh, don't talk about the all caps name. Well, if you look up in the government manual, I got to get these books trained to jump in my hand. If I look up in the government's manual right here, you'll see that a corporation means, well, it says all caps names must be spelled, excuse me, all cap, spelling of the name is in all caps means it's an association. Well, that's what they have. They have you as an association. A definition of a U.S. citizen in the commerce statutes under Title 15 says that it's a United States business. Defines a U.S. citizen. You don't want to be a U.S. citizen, trust me. You can be I would presume for the moment, you can be an American citizen, or, like me, I'm a New York national, but citizenship defines who your allegiance to. And so you don't want to be a U.S. citizen. And there's plenty more on that subject. You can go to my website, American Liberties AmericanLiberties.club. And there's, there's some videos on there and so forth. But citizens of the American Constitution, and they are currently revising their website. So I'm sure you offer documents when that happens, right?
Yes. If you go to our constitutional teaching series, I think it's day 8 or day 9. We get into this situation regarding US citizen, American citizen, state national. We get into all of that, okay? We are not US citizens. No one in this country is a US citizen. The 14th Amendment was a fraudulent amendment that was never ratified. And that 14th Amendment in Section 1 identified people as US citizens. Well, the people identified were the slaves after the Revolution, all right? And the slaves never should have been identified as US citizens, granted privileges and immunities and not constitutional rights. They should have been brought in as full American citizens with all guaranteed rights, okay? Not immunities and privileges. So that 14th Amendment was a fraud, okay? And the 1871 Constitution upheld that 14th Amendment. It's a fraud. The original national Constitution of 1787, as amended in 1791 with the Bill of Rights, made all of us, we the people, I'm one of the people, Margy's one of the people, you guys are one of the people, okay? We're all American citizens granted, okay, and guaranteed freedom, okay, and all of the rights secured in the national Constitution, all of them, all right? We are citizens of the American Constitution. That Constitution guarantees us our rights. The phony Constitution of 1871 and the phony 14th Amendment created you as US citizens only with immunities and privileges subject to the rule of DC or the USA, okay? The USA, not the United States of America. And the USA and DC is a corporate entity. That corporate entity only has lawful, and I don't even want to say lawful, only has legal jurisdiction in DC and the territories, okay? It cannot grant corporate citizenship. Can General Motors grant corporate citizenship? Can IBM grant corporate citizenship? No. Well, neither can the US government grant corporate citizenship. That's a fraud. Go ahead.
It's not a legitimate government, it's de facto, so it has no authority to create citizenship. It's all a big con, folks, to make you think that you're under it. That whole section 1 of the 14th Amendment implies that that pertained to all Americans. It didn't. It pertained to the freed Black slaves. That was it. That's the exclusive application at the time. And unfortunately, most Americans don't know that. And if you ask them if they're US citizens, most will usually say yes, because they have not been exposed to this information, do not understand what that term implies and how it is really pernicious to their rights and best interests.
Okay, we have a hand raised, and let me ask him to mute yourself. Lower your hand. Go ahead, Frank.
All right, thanks, Chappie. Good afternoon, Jack and Margy.
Hello.
Hello.
I want to make sure I'm saying your name correct, Miss is it Margy or Margy?
It's Margy with a hard G.
With a hard G, yes.
Yeah.
All right, great, thank you. Want to make sure I was pronouncing that correctly. So, yes, a few years ago, I came across I think your website at that time, and I appreciate and respect everything that you all have done and that have proven. And I look forward to and Chappie, he can actually attest to this. This is what one of the things that I'm really putting forth is that, you know, like-minded men and women of like my generation. I'm 43 years old, and you know, really trying to come together and pretty much do what you mentioned a few minutes ago, as far as like you know, supporting each other, studying together, to really develop that mindset of getting to the way of life, because this is a way of life of being able to speak this um in, you know, in your basically your everyday conversation, your language. This is a language to know how to stand on our God-given liberties, which are secured and protected by the Constitution, like you mentioned. So how can one get in contact with you? That's what I want to do forward, is get in contact with you.
Well, we have a website.
And an
It's
email.
Citizens of the American Constitution
Yeah, I went there.
.net.
Yeah.
Citizens of the American Constitution .net.
Email.
And we have an email. Which one do you want to give?
Take back our rights at proton.me. Use that one.
Take back our rights at proton.me.
At proton.me, right?
Yes, you got it.
Okay. All right. I will definitely email you, and
Okay.
hopefully if we can schedule one day to talk
Sure.
briefly. And if Chappie wants to be part of that conversation, that'd be great as well. And that
Sure.
way we can
You're
kind of,
welcome.
you know, get an introduction and get to know each other, so you can get to know me, and really what we're really trying to focus on and move forward with it. Because you mentioned that a few minutes ago also, was that and that's what we've seen, is that when, you know, some men and women, not all, but when some do get, you know, support from other men and women who are studying, and they get some remedy, they're gone.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, they don't stay.
Because they're not in it for the country. They're in it to resolve their personal issues. And what we try to explain to people is simple. If we get our country back under the Constitution, then a lot of the issues that these people have had will likely disappear, because they would not be issues if the governments were operating pursuant to the Constitution and the rights and best interests of the people. So it's a win-win for everybody. If we attack the enemy within our gates and we remove this enemy, and we do it lawfully on paper, and we actually execute the proper remedies, which would be trial, hopefully conviction, and an execution of the traitors, because that's what they are. And we can hopefully put decent men and women in who aren't looking for a career in politics, but would serve as the founders intended, which would be a short term, do their thing, go back home and be a regular citizen again, and let his neighbor or the guy across the street do it. This is what we have to go back to, the basic, simple elements that were the root of our country. This bloated government and all this federal technocracy, because that's what it is, and corporatocracy, was not part of the original plan, and it doesn't need to be part of our plan now. It's bloated and it's pernicious, and we need to stop it.
The original plan was the original Constitution, okay?
Simple.
And I have to make this absolutely evident. When we go to court, when our people go to court, when we oppose government in any way, it is only done by and through the power and the authority of the original organic national Constitution. We do not use statutes, codes, federal law, state law, rules, regulations, none of it. Why? It's all treasonous. It's all private criminal law belonging to the corporation. Remember, in 1871, that Congress seized the power of the United States of America and made it into a corporation and created private corporate law. We don't touch it. We deal only in the Constitution. If we are charged with something, then we demand that it be a constitutional charge supported by the authority of the Constitution. And if not, it is not a valid charge. Therefore, the court has no authority to hear and adjudicate charges that are unconstitutional and non-supported by the Constitution. Okay? That's one of the ways we win. And when we win, we astound people. All right? Because usually most of our wins are within 10 minutes. All right? As soon as we hold the judge to his oath, and we're talking the original organic Constitution, not the 1871 Constitution. They've all taken oaths to the phony Constitution. Therefore, they've all committed treason. Okay? So we don't let that judge start throwing statutes at us, okay, or state law at us whatsoever, or base his charges in statutes of state law. We demand that those charges be supported by the Constitution, and we demand that those charges be verified as true and correct by the prosecutor, the U.S. attorney, whoever it is, okay? And they never can do it. How can any prosecutor verify charges as true and correct if that prosecutor wasn't present when the theoretical crime took place? We do things that no one else does, okay, which is why we and our people are successful. So just keep those in mind. Now, one other point I want to make in terms of getting in touch with us, we do a lot of shows with two Michelles. One is Michelle Moore, the Michelle Moore Show. We've been on her program for about a year now. We probably have 40 or more programs that can be accessed. They're all on her website, which is what?
MichelleMooreShow.com.
Yeah, that's where I ran into you guys. I fell out of my chair. I had to call out an ambulance. I said, wow, look at this.
Yeah. A few other old timers have notified us as well.
Yeah.
Because they saw us in that show.
I think they thought we probably had shuffled off this mortal coil, but no, we're still here because I guess God's not done with us. So we're still here.
Yeah. And okay, is there any other statements or comments or questions you may have? I'd like to raise your hand if so. And let's see, my chat came up and said, hi, Chappie. Hi, Yeshua. Okay. And, they don't, like they said, they never charged anything. I showed you a letter that I have from way back then, the presumption letter. I don't know if that's changed or not, but it works, and in fact, from their studies and from other studies, I put like-minded studies together. And even like traffic, a lot of people say, how do you beat traffic tickets? You don't beat the ticket. The ticket is irrelevant. You beat the process.
That's right.
Okay. Where did that cop get the authority to usurp judicial authority by giving you a ticket without a judicial seal? The inquiring mind's got to know.
That's right.
Right. And I immediately write a kind of like a counterclaim, but I also put the chief judge in the county on notice that, this traffic court here and this cop enforcing me to go to a traffic hearing without a judicial seal. You got to know, Judge. No, and the cop never shows up. Mm-hmm. And yet I know the cop's in the back office because I saw him there. He's waiting for the other guys to get up there so he can come out of his little rat hole.
That's right.
And that's just the way it is.
True.
And people are not, I tell people, like there was one guy, and I don't mean to take up the show, but I get energized. There was one guy that, man, he studied and he went through it and everything. I said, now look, when you go to court and you don't answer any of the judge's questions, you just, stay on course. So he goes into court, nobody's wearing a mask. And the judge first says, Where's your mask? Put on your mask. Oh, he puts on a mask.
Oh, boy.
I said, boom, you lost.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
done deal. For sure.
Yeah, and let me tell you, it's real hard to get that back to challenging jurisdiction, which they say you can challenge jurisdiction at any time, even on appeal.
Yes.
Well, now he's waiting for his appeal while he's in prison. And
boy.
yet, when I went in front of the judge, and I'm not bragging, believe me, and it wasn't there, I was real strong. I was nervous, but it's all on my website. There's 4-hour, 2-hour each video of what happened when I went in front of the judge. Basically, in the story, she didn't answer my questions to jurisdiction. And I said, gee, Judge, you seem to ignore and want to become explicit to the criminal activities of those behind me.
Mm-hmm.
She froze she froze. She turned to the computer and said, you can handle that in June. Well, the grand jury hadn't convicted me yet, but she's got me on a time belt. Boom, 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 boom.
Mm-hmm.
And here it is in February, and she's got me ready to get convicted in June. Right. Well, I never heard back from the grand jury. Yeah. And I'd like to thank you two for helping me to be a part of my success, and I haven't shut my mouth since then.
Well,
thank you.
I really love you guys, and I really appreciate it.
We love you, Chappie, and keep that going because people have to know. Now, you brought up something that we should mention here, this topic, which was the mask, okay? 4 years ago, it started. Another attack upon the American people. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the American population went along with a fraud perpetrated by the government. And quite a few people, I don't know exactly how many, but the majority of the population took the shot and wore the mask. I mean, people were wearing masks everywhere, okay? Mm-hmm. So we started getting calls from people all over the country. Look, I've worked for Boeing for 20 years. Boeing is requiring this. I work for American Airlines. I've been there 25 years. Now they want me to take a shot, blah, blah, blah. All over the country, thousands of people called us. They said, what can we do? And we told everyone the same thing. You write an affidavit, go on our website, you'll see the text of the affidavit. All you have to do is put it in your claims and charges against the unconstitutional actions of Boeing, Southwest, General Motors, whatever it is, okay? People couldn't do it. Believe it or not, they couldn't do it. So they said, look, we don't know how to write an affidavit. I said, look, the language is there. All you have to do is put in the charges and claims. And they said, we don't know what they've done. I mean, this is the nature of the American people. Yeah. They don't even know the criminal action that's being committed against them by government, okay? And they can't put it in writing. You can. Some people can, most people can't. So we said, okay, we'll write an affidavit, about 20 pages. And we listed all of the, well, not all, but probably 85% of all of the unconstitutional actions committed by government through the phony Biden mandate. Get the shot or get fired, okay? And the key point here is that we charge the corporations that were demanding that their people take the shot. We charge them with committing possible genocide against their own people and bearing full liability if anything happened to their people, such as death or permanent injury. Well, I was in the corporate world for years. I hated it, but I was there. And in corporations, you have people at the top, the CEO, the financial officer, they're just concerned about making money. They don't give a crap about anything. The lawyers take a different look at it. Anytime you're talking liability that is going to hurt the corporation because of some unconstitutional or unlawful or even illegal act committed by the corporation, the lawyers get very concerned. So we sent out thousands of these affidavits to people all over the country. a lot of people in the airline industry. And within about 10 days to 2 weeks after they were received and sent to every major airline around, all of a sudden, what was the first one? Southwest. There was particularly adamant on its mandate, okay, which is unconstitutional. The Biden mandate was unconstitutional. You have to take the shot or you're fired. All of a sudden, Southwest dropped it. 2 days later, American dropped its mandate. Then the following week, Delta and most of the airlines followed, and various corporations and companies and municipalities across the country started dropping their mandate. And within about roughly 2 to 3 months after we put this out, the Supreme Court of the United States of America killed the Biden mandate as unconstitutional. So the fact is, the people have the power through the affidavit if they will use it correctly. And our position is, if we didn't write that mandate, Supreme Court would have upheld the Biden mandate. I mean, if we didn't write that affidavit, excuse me, the Supreme Court would have upheld the Biden mandate. So the people can, they have recourse if they want recourse. The American people don't want recourse.
Not
Okay.
enough of them anyway.
Now, the people that we helped, and probably millions of them, I mean, how many
don't even
people,
know.
work for the airlines?
It wasn't just the airlines people either. There
Well, it was across the
some
board,
major
across the whole country.
corporations, cities and towns, city workers, firefighters, police officers.
So it probably involved millions of people who were helped because they didn't have to get the shot and risk the possibility of death or permanent injury.
Right.
None of them called us to say thank you. And none of them passed it on to anyone else to help them. That's the nature of the American public, okay? And you can't win with a public like that. We have to help each other. We have brothers and sisters out there being hurt all the time, all of us. We have to help them. And if we don't help them, then we're very low in honor and very low in character. And we have to raise our honor, raise our character, raise our awareness, raise our consciousness to understand the evil that rules us and take lawful, effective action to stop it. And that's our mission. That's what we want for the American people. We want to see America restored. If there are no more questions, we have a few other things we
need to attend to. So
anything
Okay.
else?
Well, Jack, and Margy, with a hard G, I'd like to thank you for coming on with us. It was
My pleasure.
It was a pleasure. And we have one hand raised. Well, I guess somebody cut his hand off. I don't see it.
I just
We'll
wanted to
take
ask
it.
Chappie.
We'll
Oh,
take
Frank,
questions.
go ahead, Frank.
What are those two websites that we can find Margie on and Jack on? Michelle Moore.
MichelleMooreShow.com and also truthtalkamerica.com. Her producer created a playlist of some of the shows we've done, starting with, I think, December 2023. So you can go there as well. It's truthtalkamerica.com and look for what Jack and Margy.
Truth Talk America.
Yes, .com.
Yeah, and you may want to, I'd like to talk to you later, see if you can connect me with her, and maybe I can be on the call, with her.
Sure,
And
we'll
here I want to show you, and I really wanted to retire from this, I mean.
So did we, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like back in '88 when I first learned of this, it really destroyed my life because I was a ticket paying, tax paying guy, building swimming pools, real busy and making a lot of money. When I read this and started searching and getting hooked up with Eddie Kane and Save the Patriots and just a bunch of people, I quickly, and then in '93, I quit paying taxes. And then I said, I can't focus on my pool company in this. And guess what? Here I am. So anyhow, here's actually an affidavit that when I couldn't get my way and they were trying to take me down their highway, and here it is almost verbatim what Marge and Jack provided.
Good.
And, you know, it's a presumption right there.
Yep.
And it goes into the criminal complaint. And this is against the everyone, I mean, everyone, even the clerk of the court
Mm-hmm.
named in the IRS agents, and here, see, the clerk of the court of Brevard County, and this was in federal court, you know, providing and being part of the official record manager and all that. And I named them, and it goes on showing the criminal activity and changing the verbiage to statute instead of the Constitution.
Right.
This is what people got to do. People say, well, you know, can you do it for me? No, I can't.
Yeah.
You know,
They
I
always
can't.
ask that.
I can't stand in front of the court for you.
That's right.
You have to do it. You can
That's
have the greatest paperwork that God can write for you. And
Mhm.
God did write the greatest paperwork. It's right there in the Bible. But, oh, I don't want to read the Bible. Okay, don't, you know. Oh, well, you know, I can't stand in front. Then give up and pray to your master, okay? Because it ain't gonna happen. You got to do it yourself. You really
right.
do. It's just like when I was in the pool business. I didn't hire a guy to pay, you know, 15, 20 bucks an hour to sit in the corner while I did the work.
No,
That's
Can't
right.
do it, man. It ain't gonna happen.
that's right. And I saw a comment that Paul made, and I just want to address that for a second before we go.
Go ahead.
What you said is true about a lot of American people. They just want to obey, go along to get along, don't make any waves, don't say anything, just slide under the radar and keep being a good slave. That's fine for some people, but it isn't for a lot of people. And more people are beginning to wake up. The question is, can we motivate them? Can we encourage them to find their strength and their power and exercise their authority as American citizens to take their country back? That's the crux of the dilemma that we're all facing. And I hope and pray that we can, because if we don't, then we are going to lose our country. So we have to really try to be living examples to our fellow citizens and try to wake them up, because a lot of people are still asleep. They're under a spell. They might be good, decent people, but they don't want to face this ugly reality. And if they don't, it's going to be a heck of a lot harder to take America back. And I know everyone isn't going to do it. That's unrealistic. But if we could get a percentage, a large enough percentage to make a real movement, we just might be able to do it. Okay.
And you know, it's just like my own daughters. They said, Dad, we can't do what you do. I said, God bless you. I love you, baby. But
Yeah.
once I go, I'm not here to help you. Bye.
That's right. It's on them. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity, Chappie. It was wonderful to see you again.
Good to have seen you,
Nice to
Chappie.
meet you all. And we hope you have a
Okay.
wonderful afternoon. Take care and God
Okay.
bless.
Thank
Be
you,
well.
everybody, for coming to the call. And the video will go out, even with the outage that I have. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
But God bless America. This call is now officially over. Good night, everybody.
well.
Good night, everyone.
Be well.
Bye, Chappie.
Bye-bye.